Good morning, everyone. So, as usual, we will start with a short breathing exercise, followed by cultivating good intention, motivation for being here. Okay. So you can try to relax as much as you can. Try to let go of any stiffness, tension in your body, mind. Try to let it be in natural state. And we can watch your breath mindfully as you breathe in and out. Then we can think, our time here together, as well as our time in this world throughout our life, may it become cause and conditions to refrain from engaging in harmful, hurtful actions. May it become cause and condition to reduce and overcome those harmful, destructive, negative emotions that brings suffering and pain to oneself and others. May it become cause and condition to cultivate and develop those helpful, positive emotions, thoughts, mind. which are the source of our own happiness and happiness of others. And may we always be more kind, compassionate, and help and benefit to not only oneself, but for others as well. And may all our activities, especially coming here together with a good intention, become cause and condition to achieve our highest potential, the fully awakened state. So we can perform the greatest help and benefit to others and oneself. Day and night, joyfully, tirelessly. And become ultimate source of temporary and ultimate happiness of all sentient beings. Okay. Wake up. Those who are sleeping, wake up.
We'll just do the first verse once, and then we'll go to page 75. To the founder,
Endowed transcender, destroyer, the one gone beyond, the fourth destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened beings, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sukada, Lord of the world, supreme guide of human beings, became teacher of the gods and human beings. To you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcender, destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subdue you from the Shakya clan. I prostrate, make offering, and go for refuge.
page 75, in the middle there, homage to the Supreme Buddha.
Homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three ever devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bound with bodies as many as all realms, atoms, in all I expect. With supreme faith, I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous acts. Perform all the perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teachings of Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, and flame of lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through this merit, may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the fourfold, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, purchased by the way of aging, sickness, and death.
At the top of page 98, the short mandala offering might be on, in certain prayer books on the bottom of 97.
Jibegi Jonshin Me mi de uwai do kun nam ta shin la che pa sho idam guru ranamanda niyatayami.
Once in English, twice in Tibetan.
More refuge unto enlighten to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit activity to listen to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all. Sangye chedan soge chonam la chanchu patu tani kyapsu shi. Taki chushe gibe sonam ki. Chola penje sangye duba sho. Sangye chedan soge chonam la chanchu patu tani kyapsu shi. Taki chushe gibe sonam ki. Chola penje sangye dupa. Kanye doja nye zone, dawa tamze pangbe je, tambe shunye tunze be, kwa damde la chak tsan. So, last week, we just finished the first verses of the 37 verses, and where Togme Sangpo, Geshe Sangpo actually explained, at this time we have obtained this present human life. Precious human life, can you hear? Precious human life, precious human life. Precious human life. Yeah, good enough? More precious human life? More precious human life? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think maybe it's better. Yeah. Okay. Do I look good? Loud. Yeah. So yeah, Geshe Sangpo explained that we have obtained this precious human life, which is difficult to obtain, and so therefore we have to make it meaningful, and the way to make meaningful is to use this human life to reduce and to overcome all the suffering and the cause of suffering of not only oneself, but all sentient beings. And in order to overcome and release from the suffering, then we have to free oneself and others from the cause of the suffering that leads to the suffering and the cyclic existence, the samsara. And that means overcoming those defilements, the delusions. And in order to overcome those defilements, those delusions, we need to practice, contemplate, meditate correctly, consistently. And in order to contemplate, meditate, and practice correctly, first we need to have certain certainty about the practice of your meditations. And so in order to have that kind of sense of certainty in the practice the practice itself, the object of meditations, we need to reflect on the meanings of that again and again. And in order to reflect on the meaning of the words that before we have come to a certain certainty of that subject matter, first we need to learn by listening, reading, and so forth. Also, therefore, in order to free oneself all sentient from the suffering, and to do that, we need to practice. In order to practice, then we need to know how to practice properly, and therefore, then engaging in the listening and reflection and meditations for that purpose is the practice of the Bodhisattvas that he explained, which we kind of went last, the first verses of that. And the second is, the second verses is in order to do that, in order to contemplate, meditate, and practice to reduce and overcome those defilements, those delusions, especially for the very beginner, is very important. The environment is very important. Right kind of environment is very important. For those who have already developed, those who have highly developed practice, then maybe environment is not so important because the environment will not be able to influence them in their practice. But for those of us who are at the very beginning level, where our practice is not so strong, then the environment, with what kind of environment, places, what kind of people we are around, that can influence our practice, our attitudes, our way of thinking, and so forth. And so therefore, it is important to distance ourselves from that kind of environment that could increase our defilements, our delusions, mainly attachment, anger, and ignorance. And so it's important, just like, someone who have a problem with addictions, whatever substance that they might be addicted to, if someone has problem with addictions, and if they are trying to overcome from that addictions, if they are trying to rehabilitate and trying to overcome from that, get out of that state, at the very beginning, it is important for them to have right environment. If they don't, if all the friends are drinking, all the friends are everywhere you go, there's drink stuff, and all your friends are drinking, then it's very hard for someone to kind of not to fall into, again, relapse back. Especially at the very beginning, someone who is just trying to come out of. The environment plays a huge role. Then after, over the time, as you, you develop your own mental state of resisting such as temptations, and as you, within the good environment, then you develop. And after some time, then when you have already developed that kind of a strong attitude and a strong willingness and to be able to resist, then it doesn't matter later. Even when you are in environment where others are drinking and where there's a lot of drinks, you wouldn't relapse. Same way when we are dealing with the delusion, we are addicted to the delusions from the beginner's lifetime. We're addicted to our attachment. we're addicted to our ignorance, and to some level, maybe also attachment, anger as well. And so here we are trying to come out of that addictions of those defilements, those delusions. So when we are trying to come out of that addiction to those defilements, and because we don't have the strong mentality, practice, the right kind of environment is important. And so therefore, then he explained about that second verses about that abandoning the environment that give rise to those defilements such as attachment, anger, and ignorance, and that increases those defilements, those delusions. And so therefore, here you say, abandoning your fatherland, meaning where the place where we have a lot of object of attachments and anger and ignorance. So when we live in a certain, within place where we are surrounded by, so it is, sometimes we like to be surrounded by, people who love, care, have concern about us and all of that, all the time. And that itself is not problem. But then if we get attached to them, then that becomes a problem. And because of that, and so therefore, when we are in that kind of surrounded by families and friends and so forth, so many of them, and attachment to the side of friends follows like a water, Every time we don't see them, we miss them. Every time we see them, we feel not satisfied. We feel they need to be there all the time, If they go somewhere else by themselves for a week, a month, you are not happy about that. Sometimes maybe even a days. And so, like that. So all the time, every time we encounter them, and because we see them every day, every weeks, every month, and then attachment arises time to time. Attachment towards them arises time to time. So it's like the river of the water, always running. The attachment's always running. And when we're attached to certain ourselves and our friends, our families, then there are always other people who have different views and difficulty with yourself, your families, and your friends, and so forth. And then again, we dislike those people. We dislike those people. We dislike those people because they are not nice to us, because they are not kind to us. We dislike them because they are not kind and nice to our friends. We dislike them because they are not nice and kind to our families, and so forth. So then when we encounter those people, when we see them, when we hear them, when we think about that people, hatred to the side of enemy blazes like a fire. So those negative thoughts, disliking thoughts, anger, hatred arises each time we think about them, each time we hear about them, each time we see them.
So that kind of negative energy is constantly, and because we hear them very often, because people talk about them, we hear them about, sometimes we see them, sometimes thoughts come in our mind about those peoples or their actions, instance, and immediately kind of anger, hatred arises. And so, or which we, or yeah. And then we find how to practice. How to practice that Dharma, you know. We find hard to find time to practice because our mind is preoccupied with how to take care of myself, my families, my friends, because being attached to them all the time. And how to defend, how to defend and how to attack or how to destroy those which we dislike with our action, with our speech. You know, we try to say, oh, how bad that person is. Everywhere we get opportunity. How bad that person is, how bad that person, how bad things he did to me, my family, or others. And we try to always try to get any opportunity we get to make them down, make them bad. We try any opportunity in our speech, in our action, in our mind. So we're so preoccupied in terms of our mind, our speech, our action towards trying to protect all the time those which we're attached to, and trying to kind of directly, indirectly, trying to hurt, harm, destroy those we dislike, our enemy. And so where is the time to practice the real Dharma? And so not having the time, and even we have the time, our mind does not have the time because our mind is occupied with all these things, is busy. You know, your body is not busy, okay? You don't have to go to the wall today, but your mind is busy doing all these things, always thinking about how, you know, always thinking about how to protect, take care to those we are attached to, and how to kind of distant and how to hurt and harm those we dislike. And so our mind is so preoccupied. So then no time for the mind to practice. And so when we don't have time and when we are unable to practice, then our ignorance increases. Ignorance, forgetting what to adapt and discard is like a darkness. So, you know, forgetting what is to be practiced and adapted, and forgetting what is to be abandoned, you know, not being aware that, you know, not being aware that what is to be abandoned is our delusions and harmful actions. That is something that we have to overcome and abandon, the defilement, the delusions, and the harmful and hurtful thoughts, speech, and actions. That is something we need to be abandoned. What is to be adapted is the practice of loving kindness, compassion, you know, patience, generosity, and so forth, and to be helpful, beneficial benefit to others, that is something that needs to be adapted. Then again, we forget that, unaware of all those actions. Unaware of those actions and those thoughts because we are so preoccupied. Our mind is always so preoccupied with all other thoughts I just mentioned before. And so therefore, our ignorance becomes more stronger and stronger, thicker and thicker, darker and darker, happier and happier. And all this comes when we live in that kind of environment. And so therefore, it is a practice of conqueror children to abandon their fatherland where such delusions arises so easily, so easily. You know, that is why the Buddha himself left the kingdom, because he found very challenging to really practice and to really develop oneself so that we can be much more beneficial, go beyond, just being, instead being attached to a few individuals in our life and then trying to be harmful to others, where you can be a compassion to all, everyone's. In order to develop that kind of really strong practice, he found very difficult in that kind of environment, family environment. So he left, so he can develop that. Once he developed that, then he came back to the society and then trying to help. So creating that, and that is why, it is a different matter. Someone who has already have a strong practice, they already have developed strong practice. So then even in being that kind of environment doesn't influence them, doesn't make them to be increasing their attachment, anger, ignorance so much, because they have tools to deal with that. But those who doesn't have tools, it does make a difference. Hopefully, I hope no. As tomorrow, hopefully not all of you will go to the mountains, leave behind your families. I might be in trouble for that. And that is why, whether you have become a monk or not, to have that kind of environment. Milarepa himself, he was not a monk, he was a lay practitioner, Naropa, Telopas, all of them were lay practitioners. But they abandoned their home place to go to the isolated, remote areas, so that there is better environment for their practice, so they can kind of develop their heart, their mind. And the purpose is not to escape from the responsibility, okay? The Buddha was not running away from the responsibility of families. Neither Milarepa was running away from the responsibility. When his mother was there, because he was so attached to his mother and his sister, so in order to make her happy, he listened to all his advice, and her advice was take revenge on his uncles, because his uncle and auntie kind of took all their wealth and kind of make them throw away from the home. And his mom has very, very much lot of anger and hatred. So she advised him, if you are my true son, you have to take revenge for our families, what he done. And he went and practiced some kind of black magic and those, and through that he had a health and destroy and all of that. And so it was very hard when he is in that environment not be influenced of the anger of his mom or attachment of his mom. And so it was not easy. And so therefore, he left so that he can develop, so that he can do even more to help his mom, sister, and all others. And that is why he became one of the greatest practitioners, teachers, and inspirations, even after 1,000 years, almost 1,000 years, If he has stayed with his mom and sister, he will be so busy with everyday family life, it will be difficult. If you don't have attachment, that is another matter. Again, that is the way we have to differentiate. If you don't have attachment, then that wouldn't be the cases. But when we have attachments, all these delusions, anger, and then we are in that kind of environment, then it's much more difficult. Same with the Buddha himself, So, of course, if we can find that kind of environment, that would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. But of course, also, we have to be realistic and practical. Not everyone can easily follow that steps. And not everyone can. Also, not everyone has same kind of, affiliations or same way of feeling and thinkings. And not everyone has the karma, inclinations, interest to become a monk. None. Not everyone has the inclination, karma, and interest to be in mountain by yourself, remote. But even in being in a society, being even with the families, how can we create a better environment where there is less distractions? So instead of being happy when you are single, because you have all the opportunity, when you are single, it is like being in the mountain, all to some extent. Instead of feeling, oh, I'm so lonely, and complaining and unhappy, why not utilize that opportunity? Why not utilize that opportunity to practice the Dharma, seeing this is the best situation for me to practice? Less distractions. If you want to practice, you can practice. If you have partners, if you have family, even you want to practice, you cannot practice. They want you to be in kitchen. They want you to take care of the garden. They want you to go and make money for the families. They want you to spend time with them. So even you want to practice, even you have the wish to practice, it's not easy. Because you have to depend on so many. When you have family, you have to depend on all of that. Otherwise, again, you make them unhappy, angry, and again, you yourself, they are angry and you become angry. Again, it. And so, so whatever situation we are in now, whatever situation we are in now, trying to utilize that in the best way to practice the Dharma. Practice the Dharma, meaning working with your mind to reduce those attachment, anger and ignorance. Utilizing that, making most of it, and having less, more family, bigger problems. Yeah, you are always worried about someone because there is something happening to one, because it is a big families. More friends, the same thing. You have more worry, more attachment. And constantly, and a lot of time you can't do much, but your mind just worry and worry. And then with that kind of worry, it makes you very, tired, without energy to practice. And so when people ask me, how my families are, and so I say relatively okay. It's a big family. There's something wrong all the time with someone. Someone has some health issues all the time. If someone doesn't have health issue, they have certain issue with the children's, or something all the time happening. It's a samsara, and it is relatively. You should be relatively, as long as some have health issues, as not as bad. That is what you can just say, okay, relatively, because there is not going to be a day perfect where everything is just perfect. Everyone. You can't find a day where everyone is perfect, externally, internally. Sometimes externally good, internally people struggles. Sometimes internally quite feeling good, but externally struggles. And so, and same with same with friends and so on. The more you have, is so it is, one of the things is either we can focus on the negativities, or we can focus on the positive, like in everything, in our life, everything. If we focus on negativity, then we think, I don't have enough friends, I don't have families, and you feel lonely, and we become very unhappy, On positive side, we can think all of that. Because of that, I don't have to worry so much of others all the time. I don't have to be running after them all the time. When you have families, you have to run after them, whether you like it or not. Sometimes you will be very tired of that, but it's a responsibility. Otherwise, you feel you are not doing your responsibility as a families. There is no really kind of sense of, you are tired of doing that. Do you get it, what I mean? There is no joyful in doing that to help them. It's not like I'm so joyful, I wanted to help them. I'm so tired of that. But there's no escape because of the family responsibility. Or maybe you think, if I don't do, then what other people will think of me? Unresponsible fathers, unresponsible husband, wife, children. So we have reputation, attached to a reputation, one thing. Sometimes out of that reputation, sometimes it is sense of responsibility, but not really coming from sense of compassion. Sometimes we try to do something out of resentful. There is a resentfulness in that, but still you have to be there and you try to be there. That is not true love. True love does not have that kind of resentful feelings, no matter how much you help them. True love does not feel so, bitterness, feeling how much I should have to, how much I will need to continue to do that. Do you get it, what I mean? I have been doing all my life, and how much more do I need to do that? There's kind of bitterness and all of that. There's no joy in doing that. True love brings you joy. And so there is, so that is why we have to differentiate, true love and ordinary love, which is attachment, mixed with attachment. True love is something we need to develop. And attachment is, or ordinary love, that is attachment, is something that we need to overcome, need to abandon. When you have true love, you don't feel that kind of bitterness, resentful. Whereas ordinary love, attachment can lead to that kind of feeling. So basically, the point is whatever reality situation we are in, how can we use it more suitable for our practice to do that? And how can we distance ourselves at the very beginning when our practice is not strong? How can we distance as much as possible from the object of attachments? Therefore, living more simple life will end up, even you have families, even we cannot, but living more simple can reduce a lot of attachments, a lot of worries. So personally, when I travel, or even here when I'm in any places or traveling, when people ask if I want to go to some of the shopping malls and this and that, I'm not interested. Unless I need to buy something. Of course, if I need something, then I need to go and look for that. That's it. And if you go to those, then your attachment increases. You see this nice, or you think maybe I need this one, or maybe I need that one. You don't really need it. And sometimes you buy things which you don't need it. After you come to your home and you, why did I buy it? It's not much use. And it's just collecting. So When you are distant from that, there is no sense of need of that. You don't have attachment, craving for that. But when when you are faced with the object of the attachment, then there is that craving. And since we don't have a strong practice to stop that craving, the craving arises. And so if you can let it go soon, that will fine. But sometimes you cannot let it go, and that keep on coming. Oh, I need that. I need. And so then you feel like if you don't get that, if you don't, something's missing. And then, and in order to get it, then you have to work harder because it costs money. You know, you have to work harder because it needs more money, and therefore you become more stressed because you need to work more, harder, more fear, more worries, all of that. All of that. If you know, as long as you have a, car that functions well, that is good. That is the purpose of having a car. Instead of seeing every time new car, fancy car, and then when you look, they look beautiful, and then, oh, I wish I could have that. The function in a house is to provide a shelters, heat when it is cold, when it is hot, some cool and sheltering. And as long as you have that, enough space, that is it. But then, oh, we see one house more beautiful, more spacious, better, bigger gardens. Again, I wish I could have like that. But on the other hand, when we don't try to go shopping like that, whether it's really shopping or window shopping, then I think you have less attachments arises. So when you go this and you see, the more attachment you have. Oh, that is nice. This is nice. Oh, I think I should have that. Oh, this is good. Oh, this nice good, and all more and more attachments. And that is one of the things why I say why people are more stressed out in the cities, even though they have much more. In the villages where people have much more less, people are more happy, less stressed out, even though they have more challenges. So every day of just surviving, enough to eat for the year, depending on the weather, whether it rains in the right time or not. Even though they have that, but in generally, they are more relaxed, less stressed, more happy. People in the city, why? Because people in the city, there is too many objects of attachment. You see too many object of attachments, and you feel, oh, I need this all the time. In the village, there is nothing. They, if all these things start coming in the village, they will be same. Someone come with car, and then everyone started with attachment to the car. Before, no one had that attachment. Someone come with a TV, and then everyone started to have attachment. Oh, oh, I want that one. That is how it is. When you are not, when the object of attachment is not there, you don't have so much attachment. But when you come in the face, when the object is there, then attachment just arises. Just like as it says, it's like the water, like the running of the river. It's just. So basically, how can we live life more simplicity, with a less object of attachment, so that we have less attachment, less worry, less fear, less stress. And then also we find more time to practice, because we are not running after all the new things that has been coming all the times. Every year, probably every day, maybe every hour, new things are being developed. And if we start running after them, oh, this is something new, cool, I need this. This is something new, cool, I need. This is better than last one that I had. This. Then that is where your life is going to be stressful and no time to practice. And at least we can try to create that kind of environment as much as possible, Sometime when I, go and visit and place houses, oh, so many things. Big garage is full of things. It is built for the car, but the car cannot go inside because it's full. And not only that, I think some people have even storage, they have to pay for the storage. And probably most of those things is not going to be used much in your life. And somehow we have this collecting all the things. Of course, my mind sometimes, I feel people complain about not having enough money and not being able to do that. But then, if you don't have money, why do you expend more than what you can afford? And you keep getting things, keep on getting things. And that is the thing, that is keep collecting. And so, and then when even you can't use it, once you have it, it's hard to give, hard to let it go. Even when it's not much uses anymore, still you find hard to let it go. Your attachment is there. So you have attachment to everything there to a certain level. Some things you have more attached, some things you have less attachment. If you don't have attachment, you shouldn't have any problem of giving, letting go in a way, even in it, but we have difficult, even if it is very small things. That means we are clinging, grasping, attached to that, even very small things. The more you have, you can see, then you have more object of attachment and you have more attachments. So what I'm saying is, even though we cannot kind of live behind the whole families in that, at least we can create an environment where there's less attachments, less anger, less ignorance in that way. That is the main, the essence of this verses teachings. And also, if you have less objects, less things, also when you are gone, people who are left behind doesn't have to struggle what to do with them. A lot of people struggle. Should they throw? Should they give? They feel very difficult to throw it because it's related with your parent, your grandparent, or it's something. they feel uncomfortable, but it is no uses. And then people who are left behind, they go through so much struggles, so much difficulties. Instead, if we just clear now, have less things, more simple, more easy, simple for you while you are alive at the time of death, and then after your death, people who are left behind, it's easy for them to take care of things without so much, not only physically, that either you have to hire someone to sort out everything, or you have to do sorting yourself, a lot of time consuming, a lot of that. And then emotionally involved, what to do, what should I do? Should I give here? Should I sell it? Should I throw it? Should I keep it? No. So I think the Buddha's advice to be more middle way, and more simplified way of living, I think is not only important at his time, is even more important at this time. And we talk about climate changes. We talk about destruction that is being done to that. But we are responsible that by buying or consuming all these things. The more you buy, the more product they are being produced. The more being produced, the more are destroyed. So if we live more simplified, also it is a contribution to the earth, to the planet, to the ecology, And when you simplify it, also there's less sense of competitiveness, When we have consumer driven, then it is, I buy better car, and then someone want to outdo me by buying more expensive, more better car, and all of that. So maybe we will have a break. So having explained in the verse number 2, if we live in certain environments, certain conditions, where attachment, anger, and ignorance increases and arises very easily. And so therefore by that understanding, trying to distance from those objects and that kind of environments as much as possible. And then next, what kind of environment that we should rely on, where that increases our practices, and thereby through the increase and betterness of our practice, how we can reduce those defilements, and how we can increase the positive mind and so forth. And so therefore, the benefit of living in a quiet place, solitude, quiet, not so busyness. So the need to rely on solitude.
Then again, as I mentioned before, even though we might not be able to, in this life, maybe even though we might not be able to find a solitude to leave everything behind, but at least again, within our own environment, how to make it less busy, you know. When you make less busy, then it's more like solitude yourself. Sometimes we make ourselves very busy and too busy, you know, feel like that we need to do something all the time. They feel like we need to run all the time. If we are not running something, then that we are being wasteful, not doing anything, you know. Through abandoning bad places or unconducive places, where the delusions arises very easily, increases very easily. And when you have more conducive places, such as solitude, far away from all the busyness, then affliction gradually diminish, you know. When, as you live in that kind of things, you know, then you started to lose kind of, you have less and less craving towards those things. You started to just enjoy being in that kind of environment, quietness. Then you don't feel like you are missing something if you don't become busy running after all these different kind of entertainments all the time. You can just be easily happy being quiet and doing your practice, instead of feeling, you know, that whenever there's some events happening, something happening, that you feel like you need to be there. Otherwise, you are missing something. And so then you have less craving. It's like, you know, I was saying, you know, sometimes people ask, I say, I like chili very much, you know. So then people bring a lot of chilies. Then I say, I don't mean to say, to bring that, you know. It's just like when you ask what I like it, I prepare not to have it. When it is not there, I don't have craving. But if someone brings it, I can't stop the temptations, you know. Same with, you know, chips or popcorns. If someone put here, then I keep on going it. But if it's not there, it's not like I miss them, or I'm craving for it, or that I'm missing, or I want to have popcorn, I want to have chips. I don't feel that, but it is when objects is there, then there's the craving I want, and I can't stop it. But it is not there. It's not like I'm missing it or I'm craving for that. And so like that, you know, when object is not there, then slowly you started to lose the craving, you know, desire. So you have less desire, less craving, you know. And when you are in more quiet places, you know, there's less people around and busyness. There's less people who annoy you with their behavior, their actions. You get less upset, less angry, you know. On the other hand, when you live in a busyness and being around others all the time, you always find someone, you know, who have a different opinion on different things, you know, politics, religious,
all different things. And then, you know, when you hear their perspective, sometimes you get annoyed and started to think, what is that guy is thinking about, you know? And then if you try to get in conversation, maybe slowly you might get in argument, and then start to become upset and angry with each other. And so, because we all are, in one way we are same, but in another way we are so different, and we have different, and so sometimes when things are so different than what we think, then sometimes, you know, you just have a disliking for their different opposite view of what you think. We all might have even different idea of what compassion means, compassion action means, you know. We might have some vague ideas, but if we go more details, probably we might come on a different idea what it means to be compassionate. And even in something like that, what it means to help someone, you know. I know there are a lot of people who have different idea of what it means to help. Some people sincerely believe that the government helping is not helping others because you are encouraging them this and this and that. And that some people have that kind of mentality. And their idea of what compassion is different than what we might think. Compassionate act. You know, for some parent, compassionate act will be direct with the children. For some, you can't be too direct, otherwise they will be upset. You have to be gentle and go around and around and around. Instead of being direct, if you need to say something. And so again, you know, and so when we have those different opinions and different approach, a different way of being, and then when there's a difference, then when you see difference, and especially big differences, it can easily kind of annoy you and easily make you dislike them. And through that easily can make you have an angry towards them and their action, their behaviors. But when you are free, you are away from all of that, and when you are more quiet, and when you don't engage so much of that, you don't have to get upset, annoyed by observing and seeing other people's behavior and actions and attitude and so forth. So there is less of that. And your mind, you know, less distracted by those craving and anger and all these thoughts. And your mind started to settle down, become more quiet, settle down naturally, because there's less object of those defilements. And when mind is more settled, you are able to see things better. When your mind is more calm, settled down, less active with attachment and anger and so forth, your mind you are able to see things better without being biased. And then you are able to see what is more beneficial, what is more harmful. You are able to see what is to be adapted, what is be abandoned. Through that, then you have more wisdom and you have less ignorance about that. And so the afflictive emotions diminish gradually, slowly, to a certain level, from manifesting at least, you know. Then you don't have to compete with others. You don't need to feel competing with others. You don't need to feel jealousy with others. You don't, you know, pay much attention what others do or do not do. More focus on yourself At the moment, we focus too much on others, what others do or what others do not do, instead of focusing on ourselves. Or he or she is doing this and that bad. Or he or she is not doing this and is bad. Always kind of looking what others do or do not do, instead of focusing on ourselves. Because we are bombarded with all these senses, because busyness, and you see everything. But when you are more quiet, then you are away from all these objects, and so therefore that is where. And through lacking distractions, so because of that, then you have less craving, less desire, because you are not in contact with a lot of the object of the attachments and cravings, and so naturally those craving and desire diminish, does not manifest so often. And so when there is no, your mind is not kind of distracted by craving, desire, and anger, so it lacks the distractions. And when there is less distraction, application to the virtues naturally increases. So then when you are able to practice, when you are trying to do whatever form of practice, meditations, you are able to do better, because your mind is less distracted. And also your mind is more calm, peaceful. And whatever form of virtues you do, it becomes more strong, more effective. I think I have shared that in the past answers, I saw with my own experiences, the differences when I was away in Nepal, in a remote area for a year, which is far away from my families, friends, everywhere. And when I was doing the retreat, same kind of retreat, when I'm close to the families and friends, there's a huge difference. When you are too close to families and everything, your mind is not as stable. Still you worry, still you think about them because of your attachment, still you think about them, still you worry about them. It's hard to kind of not let go all of that. But when you are a little bit far away from that, at the very beginning, you still think, and slowly you started to think less and less of that, less worry. And your mind started to become more kind of calm, and then you are able to do your practice, whatever practice you are trying to become more stronger. And so when you have your applications to the virtues or meditation practice increases, then you have more clarity in your mind. And through that clarity, you have more clear intelligence. Through clear intelligence. So, and when you have that more clarity in your mind and more clear intelligence, then your convictions to whatever subject matters, whether you are meditating on bodhicitta, whether you are meditating on shamatha, whether you are meditating on emptiness, impermanent, whatever, in that regard, you have a stronger convictions on those subject matter toward the practice itself. Because you are able to see it with more clarity. At the moment, even when we try to practice any form of meditations, we don't have very strong convictions, because we are doing with our mind with unclear mind, muddy mind. Where whatever practice we are doing still is a lot of muds of all these distraction thoughts. So when with that kind of muddy mind, so then you can't see things clearly. And when you don't see clearly, it's vague, so you don't have total convictions in that. It's like you are seeing unclear whether you are is person or not. Maybe it is person, maybe it's not persons. There's not clear conviction in that. But when there is no obscurations of the fogs, then you see, oh, it is a person. You have total conviction, it is a person. Same with our practice. At the moment, our practice are obscured by the fog of those unclarity. You know, our practice of refuge, still not strong convictions. Our practice of loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, not so strong convictions. We still have a lot of doubt about those practices. Even with the practice of meditation, still we don't have strong convictions. Still we have certain doubt and all of that, unclear, all of that. Any practice, we still have some kind of muddiness. And because we are unable to see with clarity of the mind. And so through that clarity of mind and clear intelligence, conviction with respect to the Dharma is generated. Then all the practices and Dharma practices, then you started to really have a strong convictions. And then they make total sense. And when there is such a convictions, then definitely your practice increases. So therefore, it is a practice of concrete child to rely on solitude. And therefore, in order to develop your heart, in order to develop your mind, you know, by overcoming those delusions and by increasing loving kindness, compassion, wisdom, and developing that in order to, and the reason to develop those mind is in order to free all sensing yourself from the suffering and cause of suffering and to ultimate happiness. And for that, then rely on conducive conditions or place for your practice. That is the Bodhisattva's practice. So again, it's a very different from kind of running away, trying to escape from the responsibility, okay? And so that you can go to solitude place, so that you can just kind of relax. You don't have to worry about the family's responsibility, and you just kind of bliss out there. You know, the purpose for that is to develop your mind, not to escape, run away from the responsibility. Otherwise, it doesn't serve. If we go there, and then if we don't practice, and if we don't try to work with our mind, if we don't try to develop our mind, then you are just trying to escape and run away. And then it is not bodhisattva practice, neither is a real practice. But with that kind of motivation to develop your heart, your mind, so that you can do better, so you can help more. And with that kind of strong intention, motivation to be in that kind of place, whether it's solitude or whether it's in a more quieter place, quieter environment, even in a city, you know, even in a city, even wherever you are, where it is more quieter places, and then utilizing that quiet place to your practice. To develop your heart, your mind. So that is the practice of the Bodhisattva. So that is the thing that we have to, again, otherwise it become, there was one Lama, you know, one kind of yogi and Masid, and very called Dubakule, and he has many kind of very sarcastic way of saying things. And there is a one where he says, there is someone who is very fortunate if they don't have to die, and they are bold. So he's saying to the monks, he himself was monk, but of course he's saying to some of the monks, you know, some of the monks who are not really practicing and who are just kind of being lazy and not really practicing. And so he's saying there are those some who are very fortunate if they don't have to die, because you don't, he's saying, you know, that you are being served, you are having food, everything is there provided, you don't have to have same kind of responsibility like families and that. But if you don't study, if you don't really practice, you know, but then if you die, then that will be another. So he's saying if you, when those die, then they will go to the one, the lower rebirth, that he's saying, you know, and so that could be the case, you know, that could be the case, you know, if you don't practice and if you just become too lazy in that way, and depending on others' generosity. Even though sometimes it is not, even just being a monk is not easy. That is why I think maybe in monastery, you know, 60-70% of the monk will drop.